right, welcome everyone to Dave Cooper Live, where we showcase the people, the products, and the processes, helping us all to build it better. And today we call for visionaries, allies, and partners as we welcome Erica Spiritos, who asks, if we are to arrive at a future where our demand for mass timber aligns with climate resilient forestry practices and honors the evolving forest ecosystem amidst a changing climate, who will drive the bus? So today we are searching for the badass mass timber experts striving for better. But first, we got to have a word from our sponsors. So make sure you say hello to them. Stream Modular, the only logistics company you need to transport your mods, pods, and panels. Our friends at Stream Modular are investing $50 million over the next 25 years to build the technology, solutions, and trailers needed to handle and transport the projects of today and meet the demands of tomorrow. Reach out to their team at streammodular.com to discuss your next project. CombiLift is the largest global manufacturer of multi-directional forklifts and straddle carriers, a leader in long load handling solutions, offering a free warehouse and site optimization design service. CombiLift helps companies of all sizes and from every industry maximize the capacity, safety, and efficiency of their warehouse and storage facilities. A big thank you to Paul Short and the team at CombiLift for helping us all to build it better. Visit them at combilift.com. Brave Control Solutions, where offsite manufacturing systems that do more than just improve productivity. They have a unique approach to industrialized construction, a lineup of flexible automation systems specifically designed for the construction industry, empowered by CAD to Fab, and turnkey solutions for 3D volumetric assembly, structural insulated panels, finished wall assemblies, MEP component processing, assembly, kitting, and storage. Learn more at thinkbrave.com. All right. Again, thanks to all of our sponsors. We cannot continue to bring all of these awesome people onto the show to help you build it better without them. So go say thank you to them. Check them out. And if you got a factory or you need something done, they can help you for sure. All right, so let's get into this with Erica, because Erica has experience at Timber Labs, Swinnerton, Structurlam. She has a degree in civil and environmental engineering from Carnegie Mellon, and she's a featured trailblazer in the film documentary. That's right, I said film documentary, Women of Carbon. So without further ado, let's bring Erica on. Erica, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Dave? Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, well, listen, I am super excited to have you on the show. I think you bring so much knowledge and experience, not only as somebody that's been in this industry for quite some time, but also as a founder of a company, and we'll let you get into all of that. You're doing amazing things, and you're raising twins, and so we have that in common, so that always makes it fun as well. But before we get into it, Erica, why don't you take a few moments and tell everybody a little bit about who you are? In fact, we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we will call your mother. And I know she will spill the beans, but you only have 2 minutes to do it. So tell us it all.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in this morning or tuning in in the replay. I was born in New York City on the Upper West Side of Manhattan to two loving parents. And I don't know too many of the details from the hospital, but I want to share a couple of formative moments, and people from my life. And the one person who comes to mind right now is my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, who I call Pop Pop. He is a scientist who is still with us today. He just turned 100 in June, and he taught me to ask questions. So I think his presence in my life and the influence that he had is immeasurable in many ways. He taught me to question the status quo, to wonder why things needed to be the way they were, why they were the way they were. to inquire about sources of information, and really just to envision alternative realities for our future. He wrote a book about climate change in the early 1990s and really helped me to learn about the environment, our place within it. And I'm just so grateful for the way that he has shaped my life. And increasingly, I find his influence in all sorts of places for me.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, Erica, let's get into some of your experience here. So, let's run through them. Timber Lab. Tell us a little bit about Timber Lab and how that all came about.
Yeah. So Timber Lab is a provider of holistic mass timber systems servicing the entire United States, headquartered in Portland, Oregon, but with a growing office in Greenville, South Carolina. And Timber Lab really evolved uh, to respond to a growing demand for mass timber and to fill the voids that existed in the commercial construction market, beginning with installation services and then growing to provide fabrication level detailing services, CNC fabrication, timber engineering. So really um, thinking about addressing the bottlenecks in the mass timber supply chain and complementing the existing market capacity and capability with in-house vertically integrated services. And it's
Yeah,
been a really successful business model. I'm so proud of the work that I was able to do at Timber Lab. It feels like a child in many ways, born around the same time as my kids. And I I just think, we're still at this formative stage of the mass timber industry where many business models are being explored, and we're trying to create robust regional and national supply chains, value chains, and the proposition or the bet that Timberlab made was that providing these services would expand the mass timber supply chain, welcome manufacturers of glulam who didn't or couldn't offer the customization, welcome them into the mass timber arena, because we were then able to complement their manufacturing
yeah,
capacity with the componentization, the detailing, and the fabrication, and thereby double the number of glulam suppliers that we could work with on projects. And
sure.
so I think that's worked out well, and they've brought that business model now from the Pacific Northwest to the Southeast, and we'll see how it takes off there.
So, and you were original founder of Timber Lab, were you not?
I was.
Yeah. So tell us about a little bit about that story because you have experience at Swinnerton, you have experience at Structure and your background is civil and environmental engineering. So just give us a little bit about how all this came together, and then we're going to get into what we're seeing as mass timber's role here in the future.
Yeah. So when I worked at Structure I had the privilege of working with Swinnerton on what was then the first or the largest installation of cross-laminated timber in the country. And that project was the First Tech Federal Credit Union. It was 156,000 square feet, five-story office building built just outside of Portland in the city of Hillsborough. And that project was delivered with a 4% cost savings and 4 month schedule savings compared to the steel project that they were benchmarking against. So it was hugely successful, drew a lot of attention. They were giving tours every day. And through that experience of helping to deliver that project, I became quite close with a couple of leaders in the Swinnerton Portland office, William Silva and Chris Evans. Um, and in 2018, Chris Evans had this idea to build a mass timber business within Swinnerton. He was calling it Swinnerton Mass Timber, and he had recruited a couple of young, passionate people to join his venture, and asked me if I would come and help build that company. And for me, that was a tremendous opportunity. I was grateful for the opportunity I had to work at Structure but also felt that there would be limited opportunity maybe for me to influence that company given my remote location. They're based in British Columbia, and I was eager to join a team. at that point.
Yeah.
So I said yes to Chris, and I joined Swinnerton, and that was at the end of 2018. And we began growing this mass timber business, Swinnerton Mass Timber, which eventually evolved into a separate business entity, Timber Lab. And we launched that company in January of
Yeah.
2021 or so. So it was all a kind of a organic evolution, I would say. And I owe, that opportunity to Chris Evans. He's still a great friend and colleague, and I'm so grateful that he saw in me someone who could support this large vision.
Sure. So you say mass timber, is kind of the future of sustainability, client resilient, urban construction in North America. Some will argue with that, though. So why don't we just hop into it? What is, and I'm going to get to that question near the end here because I already see some comments coming in. What is the state of mass timber in the industry in the United States currently? Is it growing, and does it have a role moving forward?
Mhm. Well, I think, we're at a very formative time in the mass timber industry. And I would say, many times have been formative, but this one feels particularly poignant because we have exponentially growing demand for mass timber from big name companies who are building their campuses from mass timber in an effort to reduce their carbon footprint. Um, and and this is asking a lot of manufacturers to step up and meet expectations in regard to cost, schedule, and quality. And we still have, manufacturers who've only been operating for less than 10 years. So the number of projects is growing, the size of projects is growing. Um, the supply chain is still uh, it's at a place where, okay, take the Walmart project, for example. This is such a great kind of example for us to
Okay.
explore. So Walmart's building a 1 million square foot campus in Arkansas, and they elect to do it with mass timber um, to support their carbon reduction goals. Um, and right now, they're sourcing all of their cross laminated timber from Washington State.
Mhm.
And so I think that's interesting because they clearly have an ethos for supporting a regional economy. They're using Southern yellow pine, and in fact, having the Southern yellow pine shipped from the Southeast out to Washington State for manufacturing and then shipped back to the Southeast for installation. Um, and why is that happening? That's happening because we don't have a robust supply chain yet in the Southeast to be able to cost effectively deliver that project, locally, right? And we're bringing product in from Europe still, even to projects in the Pacific Northwest. We're shipping product from Eastern Canada to Southern California, and I think this is this is representative of the early stages of this industry, and I think we need all these projects to be successful because every project gets such attention, especially these larger projects, that any kind of manufacturing defect or installation error attracts a lot of attention. And so for this whole mass timber ecosystem and um, paradigm shift to happen, like all of these projects need to be successful. But we're not yet at a place where we can regionally source cost effectively mass timber for our projects. And I think that's the future. So I think the question is, how do we get there? How do we arrive at a future where you walk into a building in Arkansas and the mass timber is coming from forests within 3 to 400 mile radius, maybe less,
Yeah.
and it's all manufactured by your regional manufacturer, and maybe they're even couple, so you can have a competitive bidding environment. Um, and that's a future that excites me. I think it promotes conscious consumerism. I love the idea that Mass timber is connecting us to the natural resources that our lives depend on. I mean, we depend on so many natural resources. I mean, our whole lives are, even our cell phones, our computers, right? It's all mining of precious resources. And yet we're so disconnected often from where those materials come from, the impacts that their harvest or mining has on, that their extraction has on the
Yeah.
environment, that it has on the surrounding communities. And so, because people care about trees so much and the forest, mass timber is inviting people and is prompting people to ask those questions about where
Yeah.
the material is coming from. And I think that's hugely exciting. So we'll see how the industry evolves, and if we can arrive at a future
Well,
where
let's
we effectively know our farmer, right? It's a farm
yeah.
to table, but for construction.
So let's talk about, what are the bottlenecks to this, because there's one side of, you hear, well, sustainability, let's not cut down our trees because we need all the good oxygen and everything that comes from the trees, right? And then the other side is, are we going to start producing, quick growth trees, I guess is I don't know what the exact term, you probably can correct me on that. And it almost sounds like we need a mass timber manufacturing facility with forests, just like Home Depots in every city or right, to really make it, mainstream. So there's that side. So I want to talk a little bit about what the bottleneck is here. What is really slowing it down? There are a lot of really great health and mental health benefits of mass timber, and I've been learning this a lot lately with my discussions at some of the events I've been at. But what's the bottleneck here, and can it get to an affordable place? And then I got a comment on affordability, because I just heard somebody in Texas is building with mass timber for less money than they're doing with stick built. So that's a whole nother conversation. So with that said, what is the bottleneck? What is it going to take the industry to the next level?
I go back to that question about can our forest support mass timber first? I'd like to start there.
Okay.
And you asked so many, you raised so many beautiful, important points. So hopefully we can discuss all of them. I think we often look at a clear cut, either driving down the highway if we're in a forested, part of the country or world, or an image of a clear cut, and we say that's deforestation. And the truth is, there's room for improvement in that forest management practice, but that's timber management. That's forest management. Deforestation often is a farm. Deforestation is a suburban housing development, and I think we forget that. Um, the goal should be to keep forests as forests. And since so many of the forests in the United States, the majority of forests in the United States are privately owned, we need to support strong markets for forest products so that those owners can continue to maintain their forests as forests.
Yeah.
And I think that's just something that can be counterintuitive. Cutting down trees, how could that be good for forests?
Right.
But ultimately, the alternative could be that the forest landowner sells their huge tract of land to a suburban housing developer, and then that land is permanently changed, right? There's
Right.
no more growing back of trees in that case. So
So
just
that's
we'll
interesting.
start with that. And there's
Yeah.
there's there's definitely a need for for improved forest management practices, managing for different values, a
Yeah.
variety of ecosystem services for carbon sequestration. And we just didn't have those values always, and we don't have the urgency. We didn't have the urgency that we do now associated with climate change. So
So instead of selling your trees and your land to farmers, or to farmers, to developers, farm it for the trees and work with new mass timber manufacturing facilities coming on, or, because that's the other side. Where do you source mass timber products to put through your facility? Are you
yeah,
making them yourself? Are you having to ship them from Germany already, and then cutting them to what you need? There's all these different scenarios that are happening with different manufacturers. But what you're saying is, feed the manufacturer. You'd like to see the manufacturer also be the processor of the material and the
not
producer of material.
necessarily, not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, I think so. You're asking about bottlenecks now and how
Yeah.
we could catalyze a regional
Right.
supply chain, a mass timber value chain, regional
Yeah.
mass timber value chain. And it's a tough question because there are so many different, well, there's a few um, manufacturing processes and services that need to be in place in order to support uh, mass timber supply. Um, some of those are not location based. For example, detailing could be done anywhere, and many mass timber manufacturers are hiring people out of the country, outside the country, to do that service for their projects, because there's a shortage of that labor capable, skill set in the country. But let's just take a look at the manufacturing side. So, if there's not a shortage of trees, which I'm saying there might not be a shortage of trees. Then the next question is there a shortage of lumber? And this is the tricky part. Mass timber isn't made with 2x6s that you're buying from Home Depot. Mass timber is made from a higher grade of lumber that's processed to tighter tolerances and dried to a lower moisture content. We call that lamb stock. So now we're not even sourcing lumber for mass timber. We're sourcing like a subset of lumber for mass timber projects. And so we need to find sawmills who are willing to make lamb stock if they're not already. And they probably wouldn't be already because there's no mass timber manufacturing. And when you ask a sawmill to make lamb stock and they have a huge market already for, the products that they're already making, they're not usually incentivized to do that extra level of processing, particularly the drying. So kiln drying is a bottleneck in the industry. To get from KD 19% kiln dried lumber down to 12%, which is what's required for mass timber production, takes a lot of energy, takes time. And so many sawmills are not incentivized to do that because they can sell their full production, without having to do that
Yeah.
processing. So that's one bottleneck. The lamb stock, the kiln drying, CNC fabrication is a bottleneck too. So it's one thing to press panels to glue lamb stock together. It's another thing to custom cut those glue lamb beams,
Right.
CLT panels into building components. And what we see now, and what Timber Lab saw, was that there was more press capacity, so more manufacturing capacity in the United States and
Mhm.
Canada than there was fabrication capacity. You can think of this like steel production versus steel fabrication. Same
Right.
thing. Like you could decouple those two processes. One is industrial, one is very project specific, time consuming. And so if we have a shortage of CNC machines, then it doesn't matter how much product you could get through your press because it's all bottlenecking at the CNC machine. Um, so those are a few of the bottlenecks. And I think
Yeah.
the industry's starting to become aware of those bottlenecks. And then the question is, so to catalyze a regional mass timber ecosystem, where do you start if there's nothing, right? If there's just trees, what
Right.
comes first? Is it the sawmill making lamb stock? Is it the manufacturer making glue lamb and CLT billets? Or is it the fabricator? Um, my hunch is that fabrication could be a great way to catalyze the industry because you could potentially partner with another manufacturer, bring in product. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how these clusters, how these regional clusters develop in different parts of the world, in different parts of the country. I'm sure the story will be different everywhere.
So what is your vision on this then? Because you're absolutely right. Like you can definitely glue wood together probably much faster than you can do custom CNC cuts and putting it through the factory process. And because there's a couple things here, right? That bottleneck between one, do you have the trees local to get it to cut down on the carbon and transportation and everything else and make it more environmentally friendly? And then there's the side, like you said, of the bottlenecks of processing the lumber, turning it into a glue lamb product or a mass timber product, and then the CNC, and then there's the delivery and set. So what are you seeing then as your vision on this for the future? And like, how does it work? Because it sounds, the more I listen to you, the more complicated this whole thing is becoming in my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, right? When you really put it together, it's much easier to buy 2x4s at Home Depot.
It is. And so the point to make is that mass timber isn't replacing 2x4s. It's meant to replace concrete and steel. And that, that maybe answers the affordability question to somebody, although I am curious to hear how somebody in Texas is making mass timber, uh, building with mass timber more cost effectively than traditional wood framing. But I would say, my vision for this future is really still evolving. I'm asking a lot of questions and trying to learn from other industries, alternative business models. One thing that's gotten me really curious and excited lately is mutual benefit corporations. This is a business structure that you could say falls somewhere between a for-profit corporation and a nonprofit organization. And it would be an alternative to vertical integration. So, right now, one way that the industry is answering this need for so many different services and products, and trying to catalyze that ecosystem regionally, is to say, I'll do it all myself, right? And they'll say, maybe I'm a sawmill. I've been a sawmill for 80 years. I'm going to build my own mass timber manufacturing. I'm going to do all my own CNC machining. I'll do my own detailing. We have our own forest. So we can do the whole kit and caboodle. We can provide soup to nuts, everything for you. That takes a ton of capital. It takes a lot of know-how. And in some cases that might work, but in other cases, a more collaborative, uh, fragmented approach might win out. And in a lot of ways, that approach promotes equity in the way that vertical integration may not. So mutual benefit corporations would allow multiple businesses, a sawmill, a manufacturer, fabricator, maybe some other businesses too, to co-locate potentially, or even just exist in close proximity, and benefit from their co-location. So there's synergies that exist between the
Yeah.
businesses, and if they were all under the umbrella of a mutual benefit corporation, think about like a homeowners association. Like then that mutual benefit corporation could potentially offset some of the capital expenses, or there could be sharing of resources. Like maybe all of those businesses don't need to have their own energy production, but if they shared
Right.
energy production on campus, would that support, would that facilitate or enable businesses to exist that would maybe otherwise be challenged to exist, and be run by owners who have been
Right.
disadvantaged or who haven't necessarily had the same access
Mm.
to capital? I mean, we see time and again, it's white men who are getting access to capital, right? But how can we change the future of construction or the future of
Right.
manufacturing if that's the paradigm that persists? Like we need to have women running these facilities. We need to have women working at these facilities. We need to have people of color running these facilities. Like it needs to be like when we talk about equity, like I want to have more people at the table envisioning. I don't have the answer, right? But let's have more people at the table envisioning the possibilities.
Absolutely. I give an applause to that because, you know, we definitely need more diversity in this industry. We definitely need more women in this industry. And I think that regardless of its mass timber or just industrialized construction, offsite construction, whatever the world's calling it, modern methods of construction, it's opening it up to more diverse workforce for sure, and giving people the opportunity for all of that. I do like this idea though, where you can say, hey, I'm a mass timber general contractor with my own set crew and I love building it. How about we partner together and you guys put the manufacturing facility in and do all the routing? I'm bringing you jobs already. And then that manufacturer says to the wood supplier saying, hey, we're setting up here. Do you want to open with us? And then we'll all support each other while we get started as we bring our own capital in. I got what you're saying here, right? And then we can grow the industry as a team around us and grow together. Oh, and by the way, let's buy 100 acres and put 3 factories on it. And then we can coexist with a manufacturing facility that's next to the human waste plant. And we can recarbonate or recycle the human waste into energy for. So like, I love that, right? That's kind of what you're saying. Am I right?
I literally can't smile big enough, Dave. Like, yes, that's exactly the vision.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I mean, so listen, it makes a lot of sense, when you think of it that way versus, the Katera mode that, tried to do everything themselves and make their own windows and everything else. This actually just feels like a safer way to do it for everybody involved because everybody has a little bit of stake in the program to make it work, but they also still have their own separate businesses and they can help each other thrive and bring each other business. So I love it. I think I haven't had that conversation yet, and I think we should dive in further next time we talk on that. So, with that said, the health benefits. This is something I mentioned earlier, and I really had a deep conversation on this. Craig Curtis, I think, is at IWBCC was talking a little bit about mass timber and the value it has on the educational system and healthcare. But listen, here I am in my concrete basement, sheetrock, white walls. But man, it really feels good to be in a wood structure, like physically, mentally. And I paint that picture for those of you watching out there. So imagine if our kids and the students and you're getting worked on and you got another heart stent and you got to lay in the hospital for a while. It's much more appealing to be laying in a wood, bedroom, or mass timber. It feels more natural, feels more healthy than it is to lay in white walls, and the smell of Clorox everywhere, I guess. What are you seeing on that? Are you seeing the science behind it as well?
Yes, I'm seeing the science behind it as well. I think it's hugely exciting. Um, I think there's a lot happening in the world right now that is calling on us to reclaim our ownership of our healing. Um, we've been hugely dependent on the pharmaceutical industry, on the medical industry, and um, and our bodies and often know how to heal themselves. And what we're finding from these studies that you're mentioning is that our bodies know how to heal themselves in nature. So not only is it going to be more appealing to lay in a hospital bed with a view of a timber ceiling, but you'll probably be there for fewer days too. And I think that is a really exciting future to envision. I love the idea of sending my kids to a school in a timber building. I mean, on so many levels, right? There's an indirect, kind of intangible, subconscious benefit that's happening physiologically, calming us, relaxing our nervous system, lowering blood pressure, lowering heart rate, just lowering stress hormones in general. And then I think there's also a very conscious process that's probably happening as well, where you're looking at the structure, seeing the connections, like intuitively understanding how the structure is fitting together, looking at the beam and seeing the grain and realizing that it looks very similar to your own fingerprints and wondering about that. And do trees have fingerprints? And I mean, imagine the questions that a kid might be asking if they went to school in a timber building. So yeah, I love that vision. Um, and yes, the science is validating the intuition.
So, Erica, we're going to get to some questions and comments here in just a moment. What I got two questions. One, tell me a little bit about this film documentary, Women of Carbon. Can you let us share that with us? I think it's super important to share that. And then I want you to jump in after that to tell us a little bit about, what are you currently doing in the industry?
So Basia and her husband left are producing a film, Women of Carbon, that is highlighting the work that women are doing uh, to to support climate change mitigation across a variety of industries and sectors. And I had the pleasure of working with her in a clip on the timber industry and the benefits that the timber industry can have. I'm really excited to see the film. It is still in production as far as I know. But I think it won't just cover timber. It's going to cover all sorts of research and cutting edge technology that will support the future that we want to live in, that that hopefully will support, generations to come.
Yeah, love it, love it. And what about now? What are you doing?
So I am transitioning from working primarily at the project scale to working at the supply chain scale. I've spent the last 9 or so years helping to deliver mass timber building projects and getting to know intimately the supply chain through procurement, getting to know the supply chain and the capabilities, constraints, the challenges. And now my work is in sustainably growing the mass timber ecosystem, these regional clusters that we're talking about. And I've got a number of projects that I'm working on in different parts of the country that are asking these questions that we've been asking on the show. So, project in New England, trying to or exploring mass timber campus, and new business models that would support equity, a new diverse workforce, um, climate resilient forest management, all of that. Same kinds of questions are being asked in the Tongass National Forest in Alaska. Um, and then I'm also starting to dip my toes into the waste management side of this uh, work as well. While we tout mass timber for its low waste produced on site, there's still waste produced in the manufacturing process. And that goes for wood in general. In Oregon, I recently learned wood is 30% of the solid waste stream. And a lot of that wood can be reused. And instead, it's going to the landfill and ground up for use as hog fuel, which is basically like the lowest common denominator for what we should be doing with wood products that often can be upcycled or recycled. So, working on a project here locally to develop a timber and wood recovery campus that would support small businesses to receive and handle wood waste from the commercial construction industry and do all sorts, process it in all sorts of different value add ways. Um, yeah, I'm doing a lot of work with um, I'm doing some work with people just to continue
Yeah,
to
yeah.
ask questions so we can understand bottlenecks better and understand challenges. It's been fun to call upon my network and see what kind of work people are doing.
Right.
And I'm learning a lot and excited to explore deeper into mass timber every day. Still passionate about it, but also tangentially related questions around
Sure.
waste management, business structures, and the like.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, let's hop over to some questions. There was one in there before. I don't know where it went. Steve Burrows was saying, he didn't feel that mass timber is very sustainable in his mind because it's an inefficient use of the fiber. Have you heard that before?
Um, yes, I have heard that before, and I don't disagree in some ways.
Yeah,
You know, a CLT panel doesn't need as much wood as is often put
right.
into that panel for manufacturing efficiency. And
Sure.
one of the challenges one of the challenges that we face in North America is that the lumber market um, is geared entirely to single family home construction, and they're making two by material and really nothing else. And if we if we want a shot at optimizing the fiber in CLT panels, we really need access to um, uh, a we need access to smaller increments of lamella thickness. So instead of just having access to 1.5 inch thick, nominally two by lumber, what about half inch or 3/4 or 1 inch thick lumber? And if we had cost effective access to that lumber and sawmills could cost effectively produce it, or manufacturers could um, CLT manufacturers could cost effectively remanufacture that material without producing excess waste, then I think we'd be much closer to optimization of wood fiber. But you're right, there's room for improvement. I think we have to answer these questions relatively. So while mass timber may not be or CLT may not be as structurally as efficient as theoretically it could be in the United States, is it better than concrete? And in my mind, the answer is a very clear yes.
Love it. Better than concrete. Now there's concrete that's not made of concrete, by the way. Just
Yeah, so that's really exciting too. And I think, when mass timber says like we haven't we are when the mass timber industry says we're trying to reduce embodied carbon in our structures, the
right.
concrete industry can look at that and say, okay, we see you. Like, let me show you what we can do,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's a really important
Right.
conversation, dialogue that's happening. That's making us all better incrementally.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I apologize. There's some people that aren't just showing up. I'm seeing them on LinkedIn. So I want to look at that. That was Steve Burrows. And sorry, I can't flash you up, Steve. You still are one of my favorite people in the world.
Steve,
Arnie
thank you for your
Didier.
question.
Yeah, it was a good question. Arnie Didier, he was saying that Erica Spiritos is a fantastic thought leader. So I just wanted to make sure we put that out there as well, because I do agree. And
Thank
now
you,
we're going to
Arnie.
go. Now here's the ones that are showing up as well. If I missed anybody, I apologize. Greg Yaldi, this is the past chair of the National Association of Home Builders, the guy that updates President of the United States on housing. He says, great job, DC Live, Erica, an impressive CMU grad. Very informative update regarding timber production. So always great. Thanks for tuning in, Mr. Ugaldi. Todd Bayreuther, what's happening? Mercer Mass Timber. Jennifer Kroger, was great to see my friend Erica Spiritos on the show. Well, you know what, Todd? It's probably time for you to come back on the show too and tell us what you're doing with that Katera plant that you guys have up and running. We should talk more about the wall panel systems and all that fun stuff you're doing there. Thanks for tuning in today.
Call it the Mercer plant. I'll correct you on Todd's behalf. The Mercer plant.
What did I say?
The Katera plant.
Oh, yeah, it was. So, yeah, sorry. Mercer Mass Timber, they took over the old Katera plant, right? That was there. But Todd had a big world of helping put all of that together. So it is serendipitous. Is that the right word? That, he helped create. Now he helped create it. Now he's getting to turn it into something amazing with Mercer. So thank you for
he's doing so much. He's doing so much to alleviate those bottlenecks that we talked about around lumber, lumber availability. So really exciting work that he's doing.
Absolutely. So thank you for correcting me. Sorry, Todd. Happens every once in a while. My brain slips here and there. All right. We got Andrew Ratzke. I hope I said that right. Hell yeah, Erica. The industry is lucky to have you leading the charge forward for a better future. So that's awesome. Thank you. Hey, Jose, how are you? We'll gladly take that 30% wood waste at DTE Materials. Good to see you, Jose. Love it. Love it. Hey, no stranger to the wood manufacturing and wood producing world. Art Schmoen. Great insights, Erica, Forest Economic Advisor, and also the host of the Industrial Wood-Based Construction Conference, which is changing this year, the name. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be cool as well. Here we go. Henry had to write me a book. Henry Mickelberg. Okay, so love a bit of glulam, but it's a mean old world out there. So how do you prove the value prop to someone who's going to use normal lumber instead of engineered timber without using rhetoric? Oh, there you go. That's Henry.
Great question. I think I'd love to know a little bit more about the application, because they definitely have, engineered wood products such as glulam and lumber have different structural properties, fire resistive properties, span capabilities, obviously. And so I think I would just try to meet someone where they're at and listen to what they're trying to accomplish and see if glulam is a good fit for them. But in those regards, really around structural capacity, fire resistive capacity, and spanning.
So, Henry, the fact that you help manufacturers and people set up manufacturing facilities around the world, were you listening earlier? Should we get a bunch of companies together and vertically integrate, but not truly vertically integrate? Keep them all separate companies. What did you call it? What was the word you used, Erica?
Mutual benefit corporations.
Mutual benefit corporations. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in the future, Henry, because that's kind of a cool thing we haven't talked about on the show. All right, a couple quick more shout outs. Our good friend Andrew Seeley. Where you been, brother? Good to see you. Great conversation and topic. And Art did make one last comment. He said Nordic does small block CLT and glulam manufacturing now. So there's a little bit of extra information for everybody. Erica, what have we not talked about? Did I hit on all the points you wanted to make? Now's your chance to kind of put it out there, and then we're going to wrap up the show. Go for it.
Is there anything else? Okay. One thing that I've been thinking about is standardization of the industry, because I think standardization is important for scaling. And it's challenging to standardize an industry based on natural products that are all derived from a variety of wood species. And right now, I think one of the challenges that we face is in the prescriptive nature of our building codes. So right now, manufacturers have to certify each new layup combination of CLT that they're producing. And this disincentivizes or deters innovation as regards alternative layups, use of low value wood species to promote biodiverse forest management. And so I'd like to hope that we're moving toward a performance-based code where we could have instead of permitting specific layups, we're permitting classes of CLT, strength classes of CLT, and then each manufacturer can meet those strength requirements or characteristics however they can based on the material that they have access to. And I just think right now we're still at a place where we're just like having too many, we're making it too challenging for people to procure mass timber, because you could specify Southern Yellow Pine for your project and design the whole building to Southern Yellow Pine. And then when the bids come back, Douglas fir is the less expensive option. And then you have to redesign. I just think that's nuts. And same for manufacturers. Like, we have to be able to support continuous innovation with product based on the forest management practices and the material that's coming out of the forest. And that can't be a static thing. So let's keep talking and thinking about that too.
Love it, love it, love it. All right, well, you had the final word on that. Erica, don't go anywhere. I'll come back to you after the show. But everybody else that's still with us, just know this Wednesday, that's right, this Wednesday, we have the CEO and founder of Crava, that's right, Crava on the show. Ritwik Pavan will be here talking about their new manufacturing facility, their process, and what they are building. And it might just have something to do with tiny homes. Might. But you have to join us to find out. Love seeing the young folks get into this industry, so we need to encourage them. So make sure you come out and help us with all of that. All right. So, Erica, thank you so much for joining us today. And for the rest of you out there, guess what? Guess what? It's Monday. And Monday means you got 4.5 more days to build it better. So get out there and let's do something good. Let's make the planet a better place for all of us. And we'll make it more sustainable with people like yourself and others that are joining the show today. We can get this done. My name's Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching. Erica, stay right there. I'll come back to you after the outro. Thanks, everybody. Bye now. What an amazing show. Thank you to all of our sponsors for helping us to continue to bring all of these innovative conversations to all of you out there. Please visit them, see what they have to offer you. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel and ring that bell. It would mean the world to us. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching.